Hi, this is Anna Imagination, and welcome to the Ethical Asshole. I am your host, the salty bitch. Okay, so I am writing right now in the two mirrors, and I got to this one section and I went, oh my God, it's amazing stuff. I am talking about resources, nourishment, growth. Yeah, this is narcissism and narcissism. So, resources, this is the most amazing part of everything that ever was at all. The science of growth, this is all I do here. It's the science of growth is completely contingent upon our resources. That's all it is. It's our resources. It's our relationship to our resources. I really should be talking or writing this all down in the book, but I just got to this point and I'm like, I gotta talk. I gotta talk. And I don't know why, but I just gotta talk. So here I am. When you understand that you have a relationship with your resources, everything changes. Everything changes. And you are either going to have a really good relationship with your resources or you are not. Now, people usually don't know what a resource is. And this is where there is traditional economics, which we're just going to set that over there. And then there's power economics. Power economics starts with how a connection is made in a network between two people, how a circuit in physics is developed. That way you can transfer your resources in trade and exchange to another person. Now, this starts off with the self. Literally, this is called a self-contained system or a cell system. And this is what you have inside of you. This is what causes self-nourishment. Now, once you get this mastered and figured out, your self-nourishment expands to include others, and now you get this gorgeous thing going. So this is really what's going on is you have your resources. Your resources replenish you first. So it is your surplus that you trade, not your actually resources. And this is a big misconception that a lot of people have, is you've got your resources. The problem is people don't know what their resources are. People can't see their resources. People can't identify their resources, and people cannot obtain their resources. So these are the four elements of resources: knowing your resources, seeing your resources, identifying your resources, and obtaining or producing your resources. Now, because you can't do this, which is all you should have been learning in the first, second, and third year of life, now you're going to have a problem. And this is really what mom and dad took away from us when they interfered with our development, is we were brought into the world already doing this. This is problem solving. Problem solving has another name. The other name for problem solving is resource identification and solution. So when you have a problem, what you are really doing is utilizing your resources to solve the problem with what you have within the perimeter of what you have. And if you don't know how to do that, know it, see, identify, obtain, and produce it, you're not going to be able to do that. And it's not that you don't have resources, it's that you don't know how to get to them. So you've been cut off from your own resource supply. Your resource supply is part of your psychology. Now, when you are cut off from your resource supply, narcissists are really good at this. What ends up happening is you develop a lack of flow, a loss of flow between you and your resources. In biology, we call this something else. We call this diabetes. This is what happens in diabetes, where you can't get your nourishment. And as a result, you gorge and you gorge and you gorge and you take in all of these nutrients, but your body's not processing. Processing is the flow of point A to point B. It's not processing the nutrients. So you're starving even though you're gorging yourself. So this is why so many people with diabetes are overweight, is because they're gorging themselves, but they're starving. So there's a difference between consumption and nourishment. Did everyone hear what I just said? It's the difference between consumption versus nourishment. And people who love have nourishment. People who don't love have consumption. Narcissist is consumption. And our entire society, love cycle, relationships, be all, end all, life, enjoyment, happiness, freedom is revolving around the consumption and nourishment cycle. This is the science of growth. Now, if you have a surplus or an abundance of nourishment, then you're going to be fine. Then what you want to do is take your surplus of nourishment, and that is what you trade with. But a lot of people don't know that, and a lot of people don't do that. They are depleted in their resources. They don't have enough in their resources. And what ends up happening is they don't get what they need. And because they're not getting what they need, it's not at all replenishing them, or they're trading off their lack of surplus, their stores, to starve themselves. This is what we see with a 9-to-5 job. This is why the 9-to-5 job doesn't work. This is what we see when we have a narcissistic relationship. This is what happens if a person is not mentally healthy, but they're having children, because now they're having depleted resources and they now have to nourish another person. So now you get into something in biology called resource partitioning, which is when you sacrifice the weaker link in order to nourish the abundant, healthier, to ensure the survival of all mankind. And that's literally what we're saying as resource partitioning. So when you understand how resource partitioning in biology literally is related to your resource supply, consumption, nourishment, and that entire cycle, it allows you to make proper decisions for who's in your life, who's out of your life, where you're going with your life, what business you're building. Now, the very first thing you need to do is build up your self-nourishment. Self-nourishment is when you know how to see, identify, and produce your own resources, and you become self-sustained. When you become self-sustained, what ends up happening is all of that literally produces an independent cell. Now, that's lonely, and that is where we're going, okay, I want to grow. You can only maintain this to a certain point before you need to connect to another resource. And this is where networking comes into it. So networking is people coming in to trade their surplus resource with your surplus resource. When you are healing, you are removing the parasite of narcissism that depletes your storage. You are restabilizing your self-sustaining system. You are getting it back up and operating. You are restarting the engine to get your cycle over so you can start producing your own resources so you can be self-sustaining. And then once that is going and you have self-sustaining, then that flows beautifully. You've got this healthy, gorgeous cycle. This is where you fatten up, where you are literally growing. Now you're swelling up. There's a lot of people out there who are talking about how we are naturally drawn to swelling. Yes, it's called biology. We do it all the time. You really need to take some science courses. It's not impressive. You just need to take some science. So it swells us up because we're growing. We're being nourished. And then when we finally swell up, we have an abundance. This is where instead of us peeing it out in our waste product, we take it and we sell it and we package it up to other people and we give it to them for trade. That's exactly what we're doing. It's like, all right, I got everything I need. Now let me just partition this off and give it around to other people. And we see this in some of the wealthiest countries in the world, where once they swell up and they have what they need, they then trickle over the access to other people because they are satisfied and fulfilled. That's where you get that balance. And once you reach that point, now you've got this gorgeous surplus of just absolute nourishment being traded around, so that you get other nutrients coming in that nourishes you and grows you greater, while your depletion, or I'm sorry, your surplus is their depletion and that nourishes them. And then you see the unit growing larger. So it's like we're all eating just bread and you are eating just peas. And the whole grains are great for me, but I have an iron deficiency, whereas you have all these peas, but you have a beta carotene deficiency. So when we combine the two nutrients, this is a stone soup. What ends up happening is we end up having both supplements, and as a result, we both grow bigger, greater, better. Bigger, greater, better. So then after that, we bring in a third nutrient, and they contribute their surplus resource. And now we've got this gorgeous circuit now happening where it's a network. And then that just keeps growing on and growing on. After a while, your network literally nourishes you just at maximum capacity. You feel full, you're energetic, you feel great. Now your brain goes, okay, we have sustained the levels of resourceness. We are all resourceful. We are fully nutrient. We have everything we need. We are nourished. We are grown. We are great. We are prosperous. Now it's time to procreate. And this is the point where we abandon the scarcity mindset. We abandon the the survival mode and we switch over into abundance. But more than that, we switch over into flourishing. And this is where we propagate. This is where propagation takes place. And when we get into that place, that's where we celebrate life and that's where we party all the time. And that's literally life celebration, life relishing. It's where you really get to relax and enjoy. Now, a lot of people, like 96% of us, are stuck all the way over there in severe depletion of resources. And they don't understand the big picture to understand what's going on. And then what ends up happening is a mental illness, literally the mental illness of poverty. The mental illness of poverty is narcissism. Really, I could not make that more clear to you. The mental illness of poverty is narcissism, and it attacks another person and uses that person for their resources because they don't have any resources. So what ends up happening is then they start becoming a bloodsucker, a parasite to drain the resources because they can't self-sustain. This is what happens when a person cannot self-sustain. When a person is incapable of becoming their own independent with their own self-sustaining system. Now, every single one of us is equipped to become our own self-sustaining system. Mother Nature would not evolve us any way differently. Human beings are interfering with this process. And as a result, it is shutting down the entire factory of how the human brain, the human mind, and the human body works. And as a result, we have a surplus of narcissists because we have a surplus of interference of our self-sustaining system. So in order to know what your self-sustaining system is, you have to know what actually needs to be nourished in order to grow and where you're growing. So now this is opening up the conversation for what is your resource, what is nourishment, and what in the human being needs to grow. Now, once you understand these three things, this is going to completely change the game. First, a resource is anything that nourishes you to grow. So it is anything that nourishes your growth. Now, this is where Human 1.0 really messed this up because they thought the only nourishment was food. And this is where Human Being 1.0 really did not get this memo. Christ even said it to them, man cannot live by bread alone. But that was all in code, in metaphor, so Human 1.0 missed the actual message. What he was trying to say is real nourishment for humans is knowledge. Humans require knowledge in order to be nourished, which is why we are so obsessed with consuming information. And I really want to point out right now how consumer to consume is consumption. Now, consumption does not mean nourishment, which is diabetes again. Nourishment is when you can convert the consumption over into nourishment. And if you can't, you're just consuming it. So there's a process of input that then transfers it, which is nourishment. The transferring process is the withdrawal of nutrient from input to nourish you. And if that's not happening, then you're just consuming without nourishment. And that is what gives you mental diabetes, which is narcissism, hence consumption. So when you are looking at what nourishes you, I'm going to tell you right now, I'm just going to give you these answers. The first one is joy. Joy nourishes you. Food, of course, nourishes you. Knowledge nourishes you. Let me think about this because I want to say love nourishes you, but this is love. This is literally the entire state of being in love is nourishing to grow. So joy, food, knowledge. Knowledge is a really big one. That's the one that's been neglected. Now there is nutritional knowledge, which is why I have that is exactly what I use. I specifically target nutritional knowledge as opposed to information. Information is white bread of data. Information is the white bread of data, okay? Whereas nutritional knowledge, any knowledge really, nutritional knowledge is the whole grain of data. That's a really good way of understanding that is the internet is loaded with information, but it's garbage. It's empty carbs. And that's going to contribute to your diabetes. Nutritional knowledge is your whole grain data. And that's what I do. That's all I do is this is wisdom. This is the difference between wisdom and information. Information is garbage. You can consume so much information and still know nothing, which is exactly what happened with human being 1.0. So human being 2.0 is all about targeting nutritional knowledge, getting the whole grain of data and wisdom and nourishing themselves with it. They're the ones who understand the difference between information and knowledge. So the nutritional knowledge is absolutely what nourishes us for growth. Food, experience is what nourishes us for growth, positive experience. Joy, I'm going to say that one again. And then what it is really is skill building. Skill building, it's doing and creating. Creating is another huge thing that gives us nourishment. You must create. And these things right here, it's literally productivity. It's being productive that gives us nourishment. And once you start to understand this cocktail and you start to draw in, am I being productive? Am I being creative? Am I learning with nutritional knowledge? Am I skill building? Am I eating healthy? Yes, we all got that one down. And then you've got, am I having fun? Am I enjoying this? Am I savoring? And am I having this experience? Now, all of these things is love, and that's nourishment. That contributes to your growth. But where you're going, and this is really, really vital to this process, is knowing where you're growing to. If you grow into a direction that's not meant for you, that's actually a mutation. So the only right path for you is the one that you desire or want. That is literally the compass of your nourishment. So there you go. Want and desire is the compass of your nourishment. And if you are not listening to your wants and desires and your dreams, then you are not going to grow or be nourished in the direction you need for you. And as a result, it's not going to go well for you. It's going to become a mutation, and you end up going to negate joy. You only get joy when you do what you love. And that's it right there. As soon as you lose joy from all this, you're done. You're not going to get nutrition from this. And joy is the key factor to all of this. So it's what you want, desire, dream, what gives you joy. And then that is the nourishment of the doing, the creating, the being productive, and the skill building. And then that grows and nourishes you. So when you are building an educational program, when you are selecting which educational system you want, when you are choosing which curriculum you want, what you are really doing is cherry picking what you want with the tools you're going to need for this journey. Like you're going, okay, what do I want? What do I dream? What do I desire? And then it's, okay, this is what I want to do. This is what I want to dream. This is what I would want to desire. Okay, great. This is what you're going to need for this. A person who looks at me and says, I want to do whatever you are. Okay, great. The combination you're going to want for what I am is literally all of the academic disciplines. But I'll summarize it for you. You're going to want music theory. You're going to want reading, writing, linguistics, logic, mathematics, and physics, ontology, and philosophy. That combination is what gets you me. That's 100% all that I am. So everything else is like a subgenre to that, or something that's lesser to that. It's a sequence to that. But this is really the core of it. So when you're choosing a career, your career is actually your destination. It's your ultimate destination. But if you're given this boxing, I can tell you right now, when they gave me it was an index card. It was an index card. They gave me a stupid index card. These are all the careers that exist in the planet. And I'm like, really? That's it? That's your imagination? Like an index cards of jobs. That's all of this is a big fucking planet. And that's all you've got? Are you serious? My ontological physicist was not on that list. So I'm like, well, I don't want any of these. And this is it right here is, if you don't want any of these, and then there's the person who goes, well, I want to be a doctor, but I also want to be a physicist. I don't see medical physicist here. Medical physicist. I need a minute. Wouldn't that be fucking awesome? A medical physicist. This is why you need to study philosophy. So you can think up shit like medical physicist. I got to write that down. A medical physicist. Oh yeah, that's a thing of the future, guys. Oh, that's going to be in the future. I'm a medical physicist. Oh, yes, it is. I can see that in the future. Oh, my God, is that going to be amazing? A medical physicist. That's going to be so exciting. So that's what I'm talking about. You can't come up with this shit until you go through the program. So it's like, which academic disciplines? You got to pick out the cocktail. It's like, what do you want to cook with? I want to cook with this, and I want to cook with this, and I want to cook with this. Okay, great. And then you cook with it, and you're throwing it all together. This is literally academic discipline cooking 101. You're throwing it all together, and someone comes along. What are you making? I don't know. I'm just building something. And that's what I did. I built my ontological physics weirdness, that is. You put it all together, and then poof, you get whatever weirdness, like medical physicist. I'm a medical physicist. And this is literally going to be the careers of the future. This is literally what our future is looking like. Gen Zs and well, no, we're beyond that. Alphas and betas, they're going to be doing this shit. They're going to be like, yeah, I'm a medical physicist. And you're going to be like, what the fuck is that? I'll tell you what the fuck this is, because this is amazing. And they're going to start breaking down some really weird shit. And here's the this is going to be like, well, I'm a Gen X, but this is going to be like baby boomers and the Gen Xers who think like baby boomers and everyone else going, I did not get that when I was a kid. Well, no, you got to create it. This is creation. So this is where your relationship with resource, nourishment, growth, this is the big picture. This is the big picture. And this is where it's all going. This is where nourishment happens. This is where growth happens. This is where we're supposed to be, people. Everyone needs to get here right now. We all need to be some weird thing that we really want to be. And it doesn't even have a name yet because none of us have gotten there to name it. So you got to get there to name it. And the best part is, if you're the first one to get there, you get to name it. It's called naming rights. So as soon as you're the first one here, you get to name it if I haven't named it first. So yes, the race is on. Get there. So everyone over here is still in there going, wait, I'm still just trying to survive. I have no resources. Dude. You've got resources. You've got a problem with knowing your resources, seeing your resources, identifying your resources, and obtaining or producing your resources. Like, that's where you need to be learning, which is understandable, which is where I write all of my books, to teach people how to produce your own resources. And the problem is, you don't know that a skill and knowledge is a resource. And that's it right there. That's what they don't tell you. And this is where the money trap has happened, where people go resource and everyone goes money, resource, money, resource, money. No. That is not a resource, okay? That is a placeholder. Money is a placeholder for all the resources that you don't have. Now, I did this on an animation. I'm going to do it in real life, live action now. And this is how it works, okay? You got people over here who are wine people, and you've got people over here who are chicken people. Now, every time the chicken people want wine and the wine people want chicken, they're fine. But what if the wine people don't want chicken, but the chicken people don't want wine? Well, this is where money comes into this. This is where money steps in and says, okay, I know you don't want chicken, but I want wine. How about if I give you this placeholder that's now transferable? So you can now exchange this placeholder that's representative of a chicken that's not a chicken, so that you can give me the wine. I give you this thing that's not a chicken because it's a placeholder that is not a chicken. And now you can go and get whatever you need from wherever you want, and you still get what you want. But if we don't do this, we're going to have to go find that person, and it will look something like this. We get to see an example of this, by the way, in the movie Phenomenon, where there's 3 people now required for this transaction, okay? Person A is the wine person. Person B is the chicken holder. But person C, let's say the person is flour. Let's say they are the grain supplier, all right? So you have someone with flour, you have someone with wine, and you have someone with chickens, okay? Now, let's say that the wine people wants flour, the flour people want chicken, and the chicken people want wine. Now, let's say that the flour person at this point doesn't want chicken, so they're out of the equation. Now it's a deal between the wine people and the chicken people. And the chicken people comes to the wine people and says, I'll have your wine, but you don't want my chickens. And the wine says, well, sorry, I want the flour. Well, I understand you want the flour, but all I've got is chickens, and I can't give you flour. Maybe if I trade some chicken for the flour people, but look, they're away on holiday, so I can't exchange the chicken for the flour right now. All I've got are these chickens. Now they can go without or enter into the equation of money, which is a placeholder. So now, without them dragging flour people into it, chicken people can now say, how about if I just take your wine, I'll give you this money, which is a placeholder, and that way when the flour people come back, you can take the money over to the flour people and get your flour. And the wine people say, that's a really great idea. Win, win, win. It's just going to delay my cashing into the flower people so that I can then have an actual usable resource. So a usable resource is flour, wine, chicken. Money is actually not a usable resource because it just sits there. It's a placeholder. And that's what money is really supposed to be, what it is. That is really what money is. So you have a person and they want X, but this person over here, they want B. Instead of talking about the trade and trying to negotiate the trade, that money placeholder makes the process a lot easier, and it takes the complication. It takes a complex trade and makes it simple. And it does that only by downgrading an item like a usable resource into a placeholder resource. That is really what money is. It's a placeholder resource. Now, then over time, people became obsessed with the placeholder resource because the placeholder resource allowed them to trade it for pretty much whatever they wanted, which is exactly what the placeholder resource does. But then people forgot that the placeholder resource actually has no value until it's traded in. If it's not traded in, it really doesn't have value technically because you can't be nourished by it. But what you can do is later cash it in for something that does nourish you, which is why you don't see people with a lot of money who have almost little to no actual usable resource. So what you want to do is not chase money. You need to figure out how to develop and nurture your usable resource. So a usable resource is your knowledge, your service, or your skill. And this is really important because these are the only usable resources you've got. You either have information, or you have a service, or you produce a product. And this is all you've got, people. Knowledge, service. I believe you can also entertain, which technically falls under the line of service. So these are your 4 options, technically 3. Let's throw entertainment under service. Okay? So that's it right there. Either you are producing a product with a skill, you are providing a service and or entertainment, or you are producing information. This is all your choices that you have. So it's not a question of how do you want to make money? It's a question of which resource do you want to actually produce? Do you want to be an information knowledge person? Do you want to be an entertainer service person? Or do you want to do a product producer person? Now, the next question is, what are you producing? What is your resource? Mine is all information and knowledge. I am 100% an information knowledge person. That is all. Okay, that is not all I do because I also do entertainment and I also do events for entertainment. Ha 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 ha. I see a theme. It's a theme. So there it is. I don't do products. I do not touch products. I probably will when I take my knowledge. Oh, and I do when I write my books. So there, my information is being converted over into books. My skills are writing, reading, theater stage, thinking, developing weird shit like this. That's my skill. So you've got to figure out what your skills are, and it all is what gives you joy. So because you're not focused on that and you're not developing those skills, you're not even taught to think like that. Our educational system actually puts red herrings, hijacks you, appropriates you, and you're going, oh, my skills. And then suddenly you have no resources, and you're like, where do I get resources? Oh, well, you got to get into the system to get resources. No, you don't. You've got them inside of you. You absolutely 100% have them inside of you. One of the things that exists on this planet, which I call an anomaly, which isn't really an anomaly, it's the way it's supposed to be, is a moneyless society. These exist. It is an entire society that functions without any actual money. And I'm like, whoa, I've studied these places. And I'm like, you can do it. And that's when I realized, oh, you got a lot of chicken people with wine people who are requiring the flower people to show. Oh, that's inconvenient. So then I got to see how they run into problems. I also got to see how they have a balanced system, how it works. I also got to see how they really have a lot of focus on that information, knowledge, service skill. It's very interesting. So basically, our current finance and economy and educational system has lost perspective. That's really the big problem with the world today is they've just lost perspective. And so they're chasing a whole lot of, I'm going to go pursue this placeholder. Okay, well, have you developed any knowledge, service, or skills? No, what are those? Well, those are your resources. Those are your resources. I don't have any skills. I hear that a lot. Yeah, I know. You don't think you have skills. The problem is you have to be taught how to see skills. You have to be taught how to select skills. And you need to know the skill development process, which a lot of people also don't know because your educational system has failed you. And that's okay because we have a remedy for that. So that is economics and resources in a nutshell. And when you start to understand and you realize that narcissism is the hoarding of all resources because they lack the self-sustainment skill, instead of focusing on, I'm going to develop my self-sustainment skill, they just hoard, collect, and hijack other people's resource sequence. Your resource sequence is you. It's literally you, your resource sequence. I'm going to be talking a lot about your resource sequence. Your resource sequence is literally the be all end all of you, and it's what your entire system is composed of. It also is what gives you self-nourishment. So once you understand resource, nourishment, growth, and that's really all that we're doing here, is understanding nourishment, resource, nourishment, growth. And then it's taking this massive outside look, outside perspective at the system going, whoa, this thing is like being run and operated by the narcissists who are like, I'm going to get your resources. And how about if I first figure out what those are? And then I'm going to go over here and decide if I want to do knowledge, information, service, entertainment, skill, prediction, And once you start to think like that, thank you, dear, it absolutely changes your control, your power over all of this. Power is just energy. It's your ability to store your potential energy and transfer it over into kinetic energy. It's really awesome. No one can take it away from you. That's a delusion and a lie that the narcissists make up to control you. It's part of their delusion. And it's not control at all. It's called influence. That's another lie they tell you. They detract you by calling it control. So you're like, oh, they're controlling me. No, they're influencing you. There's a big difference. Once you understand that you can't be controlled, that it's actually influence, suddenly you have all the control and they can't influence you. So they change the word influence to control so they can control you. Funny how that works. So once you start to understand the language they use and how they've turn the language against you as a weapon to create a false delusion, and then you're living in the matrix and you're going, who am I? What am I? It's all because of this. So this has been my imbroglio. Thank you so much, and may the kindest of words always find you.